First of all, he wanted to be like him, to dress like him, to look like him, to shape his hair with a curl just like his idol. But instead of admiration, he was met with cruelty, called a black monkey, and looked through as if he were dirt. Those agonizing words belonged to Sammy Davis Jr., one of the greatest icons of Hollywood's golden age, the only black artist who could stand side by side on stage with legends like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. He laughed, sang, and danced, dazzling millions. Yet behind the bright lights and roaring applause was a hidden world filled with humiliation, rejection, and racism. There were actors who openly declared they would rather quit a show than stand next to Sammy because they believed it would stain their image. There were colleagues praised as close friends who mocked him publicly, turning him into the punchline of cheap jokes, calling him a dancing black monkey in front of thousands. Even more shocking, one of the most powerful men in America would later issue an absolute ban on Sammy simply because he dared to love and marry a white woman. Behind his famous smile lived bitterness shaped by names that forever marked his life and changed the way he saw Hollywood. The story begins with a truth that stuns many, because the friendship between Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra did not start with brotherhood, but with hatred. In 1941, backstage at the Paramount Theater, the hallway was hot and thick with cigarette smoke. Sammy, only 16 years old, small, skinny, and wearing his father's old shoes, stood overwhelmed with excitement because he was scheduled to perform on the same night as Frank Sinatra, the man everyone called a miracle. When Sinatra arrived and learned he would be performing with Sammy, he stared at the boy from head to toe, flung the script into the hallway, and angrily asked where this filthy little kid had crawled out from. Sammy stood just a few meters away, frozen in shame as Sinatra refused to share a dressing room with him, declaring he needed his own private space. Something shattered inside Sammy at that moment, and he turned away to cry in silence. On stage that night, Sinatra never looked at him once, keeping his distance while Sammy danced with everything he had. The audience thunderously applauded Sinatra but watched Sammy with indifference, as if he barely existed. After the performance, Sammy politely thanked Sinatra, who only smirked and said they would meet again. Years later, Sinatra would overcome his prejudice and become Sammy's protector, but no matter how close they became, Sammy never forgot the pain of that first humiliation. If that relationship began in hatred and ended in brotherhood, the next one unfolded in the opposite direction. Peter Lawford appeared to the public as a polished English gentleman, but for Sammy Davis Jr., he was a constant nightmare. From the earliest days of the Rat Pack, Lawford made Sammy feel excluded, choosing seats far away from him backstage, refusing eye contact, and acting as though Sammy carried something offensive. Once Sammy left the room, Lawford would unleash cruel sarcasm, mocking his appearance and calling him a monkey. This contempt reached its peak when Sammy decided to marry Mae Britt, a white actress. Lawford sent countless letters trying to stop the wedding, warning him of consequences and asserting dominance, even declaring that the monkey had to stay in its cage. Sammy stood firm and married the woman he loved despite the outrage it caused. The tension only ended when Frank Sinatra confronted Lawford and made it clear that Sammy was his brother and would not be treated like trash. From that moment on, a deep crack split the Rat Pack, and it all traced back to Peter Lawford. Another devastating blow came from someone admired by millions as a symbol of kindness and humor. Jerry Lewis was seen by the public as a champion of equality, but when Sammy met him on a film set in the 1950s, the truth felt very different. Lewis welcomed him warmly at first, smiling and hugging him in front of everyone. But once the cameras were about to roll, the warmth vanished. He kept his distance, complained about Sammy blocking his light, and subtly reminded him who the real star was. When Sammy made the set laugh with a joke, Lewis immediately cut him off, insisting the focus be pulled back. After filming, Lewis instantly returned to his public persona, smiling for cameras and praising Sammy in front of photographers. Sammy saw through the act, recognizing the jealousy and contempt hidden beneath the makeup. From that day on, he understood that not everyone who preached compassion truly lived by it. The deepest wound of all came not from a fellow entertainer, but from the White House itself. Sammy Davis Jr. believed deeply in John F. Kennedy and worked tirelessly to support his campaign, convinced that Kennedy represented a progressive future for America. When Kennedy won, Sammy felt hope that Black Americans would finally be recognized fairly. He was invited to the inauguration and even asked to perform, an honor that moved him to tears as he prepared his suit and dreamed of witnessing history. But after his marriage to Mae Britt caused backlash across the country, Kennedy's advisors decided Sammy was a liability. A White House aide eventually told him he could no longer attend. Sammy sat in his living room holding the invitation, realizing that America was not ready to see him walking beside his wife. On Inauguration Day, Hollywood gathered in celebration, but Sammy was absent. Though Kennedy later expressed regret, no apology ever came, and Sammy carried that pain quietly for the rest of his life. Even among those who shared the stage with him, the wounds continued. Dean Martin, beloved by audiences for his humor and charm, frequently turned Sammy into the butt of racial jokes. On stage, Dean mocked Sammy's skin color, pretending not to see him in the dark, provoking laughter from audiences and fellow performers. Sammy smiled through it, because refusing to laugh would make him seem difficult. One night, however, he finally responded with quiet sharpness, pointing out that the darkness helped him see things more clearly. The laughter died instantly, revealing a crack beneath the Rat Pack's cheerful image. Dean cared for Sammy in his own flawed way, offering gifts and invitations, but he never apologized, and the damage lingered. Marlon Brando was another figure admired for his rebellion and later activism, but before that transformation, he was someone who deeply hurt Sammy. During a variety show meant to unite Black and white performers, Brando refused to share the stage with Sammy, claiming the problem was not talent but him. Though Brando later became a powerful voice for civil rights, Sammy never forgot the earlier rejection, understanding that growth does not erase old wounds. Charlton Heston also left a lasting scar. Early in his career, he refused to perform in a show that included a Black dancer. The room fell silent, as everyone understood the unspoken reason. Though Heston later became a civil rights advocate, the memory of that silent rejection never left Sammy, lingering beneath the respect he held for the man Heston later became. Humphrey Bogart inflicted a different kind of pain, one rooted in indifference. When Sammy approached him at a party, hoping for acknowledgement, Bogart simply turned away, lighting a cigarette and pretending Sammy did not exist. In that moment, Sammy learned that sometimes the deepest insult is not spoken aloud, but delivered through erasure.